Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Faisal Hoque, and we're going to be talking about his book, uh, Reinvent, um, Navigating Business Transformation in a Hyper-Digital Era. Wow. Faisal, where can people find you?
Web is probably the most easiest place to find me. It's faisalhoque.com. It's faisalhoque.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I do a daily post on LinkedIn. So those are the two places, probably the easiest way to find me.
So, great book. Really enjoyed it. What was the inspiration behind it?
Actually, Tim, I've been in this business of in the business around innovation and transformation for almost 30 years now. My original book, the very first book I wrote, end of 1999, arguing that business models are the key for success, not necessarily the shiny object or technology that keeps coming out. And over the years, a lot of things change, technology changed, but this basic understanding of how to focus on business model and then apply technology, challenges remain the same. So I thought it was time to kind of put a refresher, given the fact that so many things have changed, in terms of technology, but also a lot of cultural norm in terms of how we work and how we communicate and how we govern. So that was kind of the inspiration behind Reinvent.
And I'm also going to mention, because you said it, because you're a selfless person, which is that the profits for the book go to
Yeah.
cancer research, don't they?
Yes, they do. Thank you for mentioning that, Tim.
Yeah. So this is not Faisal uh, enriching his pockets. This is and there's a reason, and there's a reason for that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so what are the biggest challenges when it comes to business transformation?
Look, there's like a threefold challenge that we can outline in the book. One is that, is the leadership and the organizational mindset, collective mindset. That's one driving factor. If you're anti-change, you're not collaborative, et cetera, transformation doesn't work. Second is that you do need inspiration, but you also need process, especially the larger the organization is. You need process so people can follow how their mission and vision gets actually executed and how everybody's role kind of matches up to the mission and vision the leadership is putting together. And the last element is that technology is obviously the biggest enabler for transformation, and technology keeps changing. So therefore, transformation never ends. It's a journey. It's not a you. It's not like I have arrived and you have transformed. The minute you say I have arrived, you kind of you have to start your next journey. So those are kind of the three elements that kind of drives this notion of transformation. And obviously, we developed and used and kind of preached a particular outlook and a framework inside the book that kind of drives this process.
Because I mean, if we look around today, I mean, ChatGPT was introduced only 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
AI and that is now become omnipresent in terms of whereas social media has been around for 15, 20 years, and while it's used a lot and it's still it doesn't seem to be it's taken longer to be embedded in society, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, some technology is, specifically if you talk about AI, the awareness of AI got hyper emphasized because of the emergence of generative AI. But the AI in various form has been around for maybe 15, 20, 30 years. In whether that's when you look for your content, or whether you buy something, or whether you're using your phone, or in the large organization when you're automating, there's element of AI and algorithmic manipulation that has been around forever. What has happened, and I was mentioning in my first book, and when I started my career, late 90s, what's the difference is that during that time and when the browser kind of came out, people are less aware of technology, and technology uses was, among limited few. Now technology is very democratic in the sense that anybody and everybody can access technology, and we're all hyper user or super user because of the consumer centric technology. So that creates opportunity, but that also creates a lot of challenges because some things are hype, some things are not real, some things are scary. We don't know where a lot of these technology is going forward. So in terms of transformation and change, we need kind of this grounded thinking system and kind of this critical thinking process, regardless of the technology changes. And then, you also have to look at the geopolitical change that has happened in the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You look at the post-pandemic culture where we have now much more digital, which started, which was already kind of on its way, but pandemic kind of pushed it to the whole next level. So both of these, the socio-economic changes plus the technology changes, it's creates a unique challenge and unique opportunity for where we're going as a society.
So how do we balance adapting to the technology while maintaining the core business?
Look, I prescribed a very simple methodology in the book, and we can end the conversation in terms of AI, which is slightly more challenging. But if you look at digital technology as a whole or transformation as a whole, we prescribe the methodology called LIFTs. LIFT stands for learn, investigate, take off, and kind of monitor on an ongoing basis and study where you are. And it starts by, the very first letter, L stands for learn. This was purposely done because you have to learn what's going outside, but you also have to learn what is your core capability and what is your core interest and what is your authentic offering. And then you kind of start mapping your roadmap, how you can proceed to identify a set of opportunity and narrow it down, which is going to yield the most impactful return. And then you can continuously evolve that. And I talk about in the book and even in my own work, you have to create an innovation portfolio, and that innovation portfolio, you have to siphon it down. Which one has the?
So when you say an innovation portfolio, you're talking about within an organization.
Yes, within an organization, and by the way, it also applies for individual, because if you're at a certain level in your career and you say, okay, I want to go to the next level of my career, you have to kind of create what is the path, and you can actually create your own set of innovation portfolio that I have to innovate my own skill in this XYZ area. The notion of portfolio is like a financial portfolio, right? I mean, you do risk management. It's okay, I'm going to invest a certain amount of time, money in stock market, certain amount of in my real estate, certain amount in my 401k, whatever the case may be, and you balance it, right? So when you're talking about balance, innovation portfolio is usually looked at high risk, high reward, medium risk, medium reward, and then things that you shouldn't be doing because it doesn't really have a whole lot of return. So it's kind of the same notion, but it applies for organization as well as applies for individual.
So in your methodology of lifts, the first one is learn, and so that what you're saying is that learning is about, you need to understand what your ideal customer is, what the market is, what the competition are doing, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and where the market is going, right? And again, when you talk about where the market is going, I mean, there's a series of things or drivers, as we call it, right? I mean, there's things like the cultural change, market shift, geopolitical change, technology shift. Those are all drivers for change on the outside. Internally, you also have to learn what your organization is currently doing, what it can do better, what your core competency is, how do you bridge the gap against the outside drivers that are changing the market as a whole, et cetera, right? Based on that, then you can kind of investigate where are your key opportunity is. This is where you can start formulating that innovation portfolio that I just spoke about. And then once you do that, you can start putting together what you want to execute on, and then start executing and then start tracking and studying what's working and what's not working.
And so the next one in your lifts methodology is investigate.
Right. So the investigate is when you can say, okay, look, I have 10 opportunity that I can pursue, but within that 10 opportunity, which one are going to have the highest return? But also which one has the highest risk, right? Because you should have a balanced portfolio that has a mix of high return, high risk, but also some medium risk and medium return. Because if you put all the things in one basket, I mean, the reality is that if you have 10 opportunity, 6, 7 of them are not going to really work out. 4 or 5 of them are going to work out. So you have to take that balance approach and create that portfolio, and that's where the investigation comes in. It's investigating the opportunity that has the highest return, but also a balanced approach, what works and what doesn't work.
So the next one in your lifts methodology is formulate.
Right. So you have to cite, if you had 10 opportunity, you may decide that we're going to go after and execute 3 of them, because you can't really do, it's a question of that old saying, focus, focus, focus. So you have to focus which one you want to actually execute. So that's where that step comes in. And in that step, you put together a complete roadmap, execution roadmap, in terms of what's your business model, what's your technology model, what's your resource allocation maybe, and what's your cost allocation maybe, and what's going to be the return, and what's the time frame to execute this, so that you can actually realize how these things are going to get monetized.
So that's really then about deciding where you're going to focus. And I agree with you. At the end of the day, if you're going to, you do need to come up with a portfolio of 10, but you're only going to do probably 2 or 3.
Absolutely. And then if some of them doesn't work out, you have to sunset them or shut down and pick up another one, right? So that's why the portfolio is never, it's evergreen. It should be evergreen, and you should have a pipeline of opportunity that you're constantly looking at.
So in the next one, to talk to us about the next one, which is takeoff.
Right.
So this is implementation, is it?
Yeah, it's implementation, but it's also rolling out, right? So take up meaning your innovation or your initiative actually has taken off, and you have operationalized whatever those 2 or 3 things that you're working on, and they'll be at a different time frame depending on the size or shape of the organization. And it's taken off, and you operationalized it, and you rolled it out. And in that rollout process, usually what happens, especially if you're a large organization, you cannot just roll out everything all at once, right? You do a kind of a phased approach and learn from it, and then it gets better and better, and it becomes a repeatable process. So that takeoff is when it's like, you start maybe a little bit of walking, not really crawling, but walking, and then you're running, and then it's a repeatable process, and you're gathering feedback from that phase, what's really working and what's not working, and where do you want to make the next level of improvement process. And in the book, obviously, Tim, and we defined a pretty extensive set of matrix and methods and tracking mechanism and allocation model and risk analysis model that gets applied in every phases, but at a various degree.
And then the final one that you've got in your lifts model is study. So I'm guessing this is what you're doing, is that you're measuring and continually measuring what you've achieved. Have you achieved it?
Exactly. And did it really, was your core assumption were true or not, right? And what are the learning that you have had from your failures? And by the way, failures, it's not that whole project fail. You'll inherently face different obstacles and different setbacks. So it's learning from that setback, and course correction is what you want to then pull it back into the organization. And actually, if you don't look at those small setbacks, just focus on the bigger failure, the organization never learns. So for example, if you say, look, I'm going to do a market outreach of my new product, and I'm going to create a automated infrastructure to email campaign, as an example, right? So it could be that you're not getting enough response. So it's not the question of whether that infrastructure that you have set up, the technology infrastructure that you have set up is not working, it's reaching, but customer is not responding because message is not really resonating to the person that you are reaching out to, right? So there's a learning process of what message is really working and what message is not working. Another example, technological example, you set up the infrastructure and you're sending out email, and all the email are ending up in the spam box because the email system hasn't taken into consideration that you have to white label these things so that it does go to the particular audience. This is a very simple example that I just gave, but you can exponentially think, and things can get pretty complex when you're talking about global supply chain, when you're talking about automated, AI agent-based workflow automation, et cetera, et cetera.
So, what would you see? So, anyway, so that's lifts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you talk about that in the book. I'm interested in your view also in terms of resistance to change. What can you do about resistance to change?
This is probably the most hardest part because you're talking about human psychology, and you're talking, and I mean, nothing is more complicated than human psychology at the end of the day. And when you're talking about a collective group of people, you are talking about a lot of different personalities, a lot of different background, et cetera, et cetera. As a leader, the biggest challenge is actually bringing people together and align them and getting them influenced behind your idea. So what I propose in there, and it's in one of my previous book, I talk about transformational leadership, and there's a concept of 4 I's. It's the inspiration, influence, and then intellectual curiosity, and then the last I stands for individualized motivation. So when you are crafting your mission and vision, you have to show people what's in it for them and kind of put together a path so people can understand that I am doing this, but it impacts the overall mission and vision this way. This is probably the most important task of a leader, to mobilize the troop, if I can use that term, from my days in Army and DoD. But that's what you really have to do, and this is the biggest focus of any leader or manager. Needs to focus on above and beyond what technology works and what technology doesn't work.
I think I've been involved in transformations, and the resistance to change was by far the biggest issue.
We've always done this way. Why should I have to? Why do we have to
Exactly,
change?
yeah. And people that have had 20-year careers based on something, and you say that, and you say, what you've built up over the last 20 years. Well, that's not. We don't want that anymore. And it's a massive issue, something that you've really got to do.
It is. I mean, I give you a real life example, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all heard of Agile, right? So I mean, and we all know about Six Sigma as an example, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at Six Sigma and Agile, these were created when technology was a very different place than it is right now. Reality is that if you want to do this, very structured Agile or Six Sigma or any of these, very structured methodology, and Agile will argue, well, no, Agile is not structured, but it is structured and it's got a lot of rules and et cetera, et cetera. It really doesn't work because the technology moves way too fast, and you can bypass many of the steps, right? But if you talk to an Agile master, they'll say, what do you mean? I mean, this is how it worked, and blah, 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 so on and so forth, right? So I'm not picking on Agile or Six Sigma. I'm just using that as an example that, adaptation and change is a mindset. Uncertainty is a mindset. I think the first thing we all have to get used to is that we have to get very comfortable with uncertainty. Uncertainty is the new norm. It's not the new thing. It's not that, we are uncertain, therefore we have to change. uncertainty is the new norm. And then if we focus on that, then change kind of easy to focus. But it's also an exciting time. I mean, look all the things we can do that
Oh
we
yeah.
were not able to do even
Well, look at
6
this.
months ago.
Look at this technology. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
being able to run like a TV channel for like next to nothing.
Yes, absolutely.
Faisal, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Reinvent: Navigating Business Transformation in a Hyper Digital Era. And I'm just going to, because I know that you're very modest as well. So even if you buy the book, that your money will go to cancer research. So even if you buy it and don't read it, you're doing good. Where could I buy a copy of this, Faisal?
I mean, you can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other places where books are sold. And by the way, there's also audio version if you don't feel like reading it. So there's audio book and there's Kindle version. So whatever your method of reading or learning, you can use it.
And where can we find more information about you?
It's faisalhoque.com, and when we talk again, Tim, we'll talk about AI extensively because my next book, Transcend, comes out first of next year.
Yes, so
Year.
Faisal has a new book coming out. Did you say March 25th?
Yeah, it's March, late March. I forgot exactly.
Right, and we'll pick up and talk about that